Okay, now let's start the session 3, day 2 program of the regional symposium. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our distinguished speakers, our distinguished participants. I hope you have enjoyed the day 1 program. And this session, we explore the role of digital government for and innovation in responding to the pandemic and for building a more resilient and sustainable future. And also we have a group of excellent speakers from international organizations, from academia, and also from some research institutions. So I hope that you will enjoy today's session. So during the session, if you have any question, you can use the Q&A function to put the questions, and we will address some of them during interactive Q&A session. Now let me give a brief introduction, also further introduction about this session. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, it is both kind of a challenge and also kind of a good opportunity for advanced digital government development. We encounter some challenges that we already experienced before, like a digital divide, gender divides, a lack of digital skills and digital capacities, and also lack of effective governance strategy, and also a national strategy for engaging citizens, and also for the coordination of cross-sectoral collaboration, and also lack of effective partnership to enable the open innovation. And also, especially during the COVID-19 era, we also some new challenges and issues have become more significant, like the data and the data inclusiveness, and also how to more effectively use the open data for building inclusive societies. And also people are more concerned about protection of data privacy and also information. And also people also become more concerned about the security of the ICT infrastructure. So this kind of new issues also needs kind of new solutions, yeah. So today we will address those kind of challenges and see what kind of new opportunities this kind of COVID-19 offered us, yeah. So now let me have the honor to invite Mr. Vincenzo Acquara, who is the Chief of the Digital Government Branch of DPIDG of UN DESA. Vincenzo, my question for you is, can you provide a snapshot of a digital government development in the Asian and Pacific region as illustrated in the e-government survey 2020? And how countries in the region have utilized ICT tools in managing COVID-19 recovery? Mr. Acquara, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I would ask if you can show the 3 slides. Yes, thank you. Okay. So, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to be here today to present some insight of the key finding of digital transformation in Asia and Pacific based on the 2020 United Nations e-government survey. The e-government survey is a flagship publication of UN DESA issued every 2 years. The 2020 report is the 11th edition. For whom is not familiar with the methodology, the survey assesses the digital government development according to a quantitative normalized composite index called the AGDI. At a glance, next slide, please. At a glance, the 2020 survey reflects further improvement in global trends in e-government development and the transitioning of many countries from lower to higher AGDI cluster. This slide shows the geographical region distribution of the 4 AGDI groups in 2020. The global average AGDI value continues to rise, reaching 0.60 in 2020 in comparison with the 0.55 2018. All the 5 regions have improved their average AGDI value, contributing to an increase to digital development worldwide. For the first time, Asia is in the second position in terms of regional GDI, followed by the Americas, Oceania, and Africa. Europe remained the leaders in e-government development with an average of a GDI value of 0.82. All countries in Europe have a GDI value above the global average. But it is worthy to notice that Africa and Oceania made notable progress, having increased their GDI value by 14%. But while this movement denotes a significant improvement in the level of e-government development around the world, this slide shows how the world is divided in two blocks, with 46% of countries in the world lagging behind. It is also worthy to notice that the wider is the distribution of the countries in each region, the higher is the digital divide in that region among the countries. The Asian region is highlighted in red. Asia with the 0.64 has the second regional average GDI behind Europe. While Asian countries perform well as a group, their individual levels of e-government development are highly diverse. This region has the widest variance in GDI value, with the 72% of the Asian country in the high or very high GDI group, and with 25% of the countries belonging to the middle GDI, and only with one country, the Democratic Republic of Korea, in the low GDI. This gap points to persistent challenges that continue to undermine the efforts for development of many countries in the region, in particular the least developed states. Despite some development gains and investment in technology in several groups of countries, digital divide continues to persist. If we look, at the same time, disparity remains with and among countries. The use of digital technology may create new opportunities for developing countries to bridge the digital divide. However, while developed countries that have existing technological infrastructure experience the benefit of such innovation, many other countries are potentially left behind, adding another dimension to the already widening digital divide. Next slide, please. Asia increased its average GDI value from 0.58 in 2018 to 0.64 in 2020, or by 10%, becoming the second most advanced region in e-government development. The improvement was driven primarily by infrastructure development as a whole. This slide presents a snapshot of the top leaders in the region within the group of the very high GDI. Asia has further distinguished itself as the region with the highest number of countries that significantly improved their GDI, and the third in the world with the largest share of countries achieving higher GDI level in 2020. It is worthy to note that for the first time, China, Kuwait, Malaysia, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Thailand, and Turkey joined the group of the very high Asian leader, raising to 15 the number of countries led by the Republic of Korea, Singapore, and Japan in the highest rating class. Countries that experienced great improvement in GDI include Bhutan, Cambodia, Syria, Armenia, Indonesia, and Cyprus. Next slide, please. Allow me to spend my last minute of my presentation to share with you some insight and finding of the regional digital development using a different methodological approach complementary to the GDI. What I'm presenting now is the outcome of a research challenge I have addressed to a group of researchers from academia. The completed result of this work has been recently published on Nature Journal as a scientist's report. I invite you to read the paper for detailed information about the methodological approach utilized. Using World Development Indicator value from World Bank, we designed a complex network model to capture similarities and the differences among all member states. And we used the 324 World Development Indicator of World Bank based on data availability, consistencies, and non-redundant information. In this network, each node corresponds to a UN country, which can be compared to the other through a proper similar metrics. what is important to notice here is that using this methodology, 4 different network communities on development were identified. A network community is a set of countries which a tendency of interact among themselves more than with nodes in the rest of the network. And this slide presented these 4 communities. What is important for my presentation today is that looking at these 4 communities, we have the benchmark countries, so the top leader in the world that are for Asia are Republic of Korea and Singapore. But we also have in the top of the class countries in these 2 communities, that is community 2, where we have a very United Arab Emirates, Kazakhstan and Bahrain, and also in the group 3, Philippines, Kyrgyz Republic, Uzbekistan, Indonesia, and Mongolia, that are performing also very well. There is room for improvement in community 2, so looking at Maldives, Palau, Lebanon, and also in community 3, Pakistan, Turkmenistan, Laos, Democratic Republic of Korea. So this is to highlight which are countries, which countries in the region should really take advantage of the opportunity of moving faster on digital transformation, also due to COVID pandemic, in order to improve and enhance their digital government in the region. And with this, I think I ended my 7 minutes, so I give the floor back to the moderator. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Vinh. Thank you for highlight the concerns that the new technology could cause the new widening digital divide. I think it's a very important policy signal for developing countries that they really need to make efforts to catch the trends and also make efforts to better utilize the technology, new technology. Secondly, you also highlight the gaps between the developed and developed countries. Yeah, I mean, compared with other regions, this region has like a highest e-government ranking, like Korea, Japan, Singapore. But also, we also have those countries who are significantly lag behind, those countries. So this region really have a very wide digital government development gaps. But in the meantime, as you highlighted that in the region, many countries also make great strides due to their maybe consistent investment in digital infrastructure. This also many countries make a big jump in their ranking. So there's kind of good signs and also positive development in the region. Yeah. And also the third, you also, introduce a new approach to complement the currently e-government ranking to benchmark the digital government development. And also thank you for introducing this kind of a new research report. And also in the slides, we also have this kind of link. So I would suggest that our participants can also have a further look at that report and see how you have already conducted the research using the WDI of the World Bank to see how to benchmark the country development in different communities. Yeah. Thank you, Vincenzo. Thank you. Yeah. Now let me have the honor to invite Mr. Sung Jun Song, who is the Director for Digital Government Cooperation of the Ministry of Interior and Safety of the Republic of Korea. Mr. Sung, we all know that Korea has been a forerunner in digital government. And also during this kind of COVID-19 pandemic, and also the Korean government has successfully utilized the data and the AI, all this kind of innovative technologies for social contact tracing, social distancing, contact tracing. So very successful in managing the COVID-19 by leveraging digital government AI and new technologies. So I have a question for you. The question is, can you share Korea's strategy in promoting digital government transformation? Mr. Song, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. It's my honor to present the Korea's digital transformation strategy here. To start, in the era of this digital transformation, every country is facing the same challenges, including service delivery to citizens and the way government works. And of course, the Republic of Korea is no exception. There have been many discussions in Korea on how to build a better government embracing opportunities of digital transformation. Therefore, Korean government developed the Digital Government Innovation Plan and Digital New Deal. I would share this strategy with you today. Next slide, please. So first, Digital Government Innovation Plan. We had established this plan in October 2019. Digital, the door to a better world is our slogan. So, next slide. Next. Thank you. In response to COVID-19 outbreak, as digital transformation is an essential element to overcome the crisis and better prepare for the post-COVID-19 society, we announced a revised plan in June 2020. The strategy outlines directions and specific initiatives in 4 areas of government: service, data, digital infrastructure, and private-public partnership. First, the Korean government plans to re-engineer the government administration process to provide a more seamless and secure non-contact services to the citizens. Use of a mobile ID card is the first task. Both public and private sector needs a digital identity verification for the non-contact services. So through the mobile ID cards and smartphones, each person can verify one's digital identity both online and offline. And we also plan to launch My Data initiative. Usually documents contain too much information, which is not actually required in some services. To protect the personal information and data sovereignty, each person can search, store, and provide its own specific data that the public sector has, so that people can give necessary information only. And check the use of my private information as well. Second, we are improving the way of public service delivery. From 2021, citizens can use AI-based public secretary, and public secretary can notify the public services in a proactive, individually customized way. We have the government portal code Gov24, which integrated all kinds of public service online. And through this, individuals can search the customized benefit information, including qualification information that's given by central and local governments. Third, we'll create collaborate digital ecosystem to promote private-public partnership to strengthen digital economy. Korean government tried to open public data much more than before. We consider the user-specific market needs public data and unstructured data like autonomous driving, smart city, healthcare, etc. We hope the industries can develop advanced and convenient services. We open public services to the private sector. Apps and web pages which developed by central and local governments would not be convenient enough compared to the private services. So we open the public services so that people can pay taxes and expenses, make a reservation for public facilities, reporting compliance using private mobile apps. Last, Korea will enhance its digital infrastructure to be more inclusive and efficient to deliver government services with minimum limitation. We believe the IoT, Internet of Things-based early warning system can keep the people's lives and safety. And also cybersecurity is always the main concerns. We use artificial intelligence for cybersecurity to keep the government systems from the cyber threats. Korea is the one of the most developed country in the field in IT technology, but some people are still hard to use the IT-based services. For them, we will install Wi-Fi in public places and high-speed network and digital competence education for all citizens at the Digital Competence Center. So next slide, please. Since the COVID-19 pandemic unimaginably changed the world, governments around the world are processed to change the cope with new normal. In July, the Korean government announced the Korean Digital New Deal as a part of a bigger national strategy for a great transformation. The Digital New Deal aims to build a stronger digital economy and promote growth in non-contact industries by further integrating data, network, and AI throughout the economy, and digitalizing education infrastructure, fostering the non-contact industry, and applying emerging technologies to key social overhead capital infrastructure. There are two projects that are related to digital government transformation and the digital New Deal strategy. I'd like to introduce these projects. First project is Intelligent Government. Intelligent Government will utilize the 5G network, blockchain technology, and other new digital technologies to quickly process and provide customized public services. Provision of non-contact public services will be expanded. This includes issuance of government documents based on a mobile identification system and provision of customized information on government's subsidy and pension plans. Blockchain technology will be adopted in 120 pilot projects in areas closely related to people's lives, such as the receipt of welfare benefits, real estate transaction, and online voting. To adopt a smart working environment in the government, the 5G network will be established in phases at all government complexes, and public information system will be transferred to cloud networks. To build a knowledge platform, 1.25 million academic journals and books owned by National Assembly and the National Library of Korea will digitize every year, and subscription to international academic journals will be expanded to 5 key academic journals and 76 general journals by 2025. Second project is Data Dam. The transition toward the digital economy will be accelerated, and 5G and AI will be integrated throughout all sectors by strengthening the foundation for data collection, processing, trading, and utilization. Additional big data platforms will be established across industries, including financial and environmental platforms. A total of 142,000 public data will be made available to the public, and 1,300 types of data will be collected for AI learning. The installation of 5G across the country will be supported by private network. So COVID-19 threw devastated the entire international community. It also put all the government to test, expose what works, what it doesn't in the country. However, it's provided us with a unique opportunity to implement what we have envisioned and discussed over the years in a very short time. Pandemic has pushed us to transform our governments, our societies. I believe that many countries can take this devastation and turn it into a path to a better future for their citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Song. Thank you for introducing the Korea the strategy for the digital government development. So from what you have just introduced, there are some key terms. One is that about the data sharing, data collection, and also secondly, about collaboration with the private sector. The third one is about the expanding the digital infrastructure. I also see that you also mentioned about the customized services for citizens. That's also very important, for citizens, especially at this time, So and also you also introduced the digital New Deal, which kind of very forwarding, and also there's a new program and see better utilize the current technology that use AI, and also and also that data dam, it's also a very kind of ambitious initiative that to integrate all the data with the data platforms. So all this kind of experience that because Korea is really a kind of forerunner in all these areas. I think other countries can really learn a lot from Korea, and also we hope that through this kind of regional symposium in the future, then we can build up more partnership between Korea and other countries. Thank you, Mr. Song. So now let me have the pleasure to invite His Excellency, the Vice Minister of the Ministry of Digital Development, Innovation, and Aerospace Industry of the Kazakhstan. Mr. Zambakin. We all know that Kazakhstan has been quite successful in making strides in government development, especially enhancing digital government services. Can you share Kazakhstan's experience in providing integrated services to promote more cooperation among different agencies? And what are the capacities needed at individual organizational and institutional and societal levels for promoting digital government development and address other issues of sustainable development. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm glad to welcome colleagues from different countries. Thank you. So, as mentioned, the pandemic once again underlines digitalization and infrastructure is a fundamental for the development of the countries. Many industries closed, many people even left without jobs, and our task was to provide the resiliency of government services. And one of the first things we started doing is we provided biometric identification for government services and introduced digital issuance of the digital signature. So that the citizen using his biometric identification could issue himself a digital sign, and almost all government services started. He could use all the government services. At the moment, 82% of public services are online, and this 80% can be obtained fully electronically. But there are still challenges that we are trying to overcome in terms of going from government services to so-called live events, because it turns out that some public services are being obtained by citizens in order, or businesses in order to get the second or the third public service. So at the moment we are working on making end-to-end processes. So for example, from the birth to going to the job, or from medical, in the medical and social and security and all these sectors, we are designing live event approach. So it would help us to provide not only 100% public services online, but to fully satisfy the needs. In terms of your question, how we cooperate among different agencies, we had a vice prime minister who was responsible for this task. At the moment, we have chief digital officers in several main government agencies, and the ministry on a weekly manner makes so-called weekly Scrum meetings. And teams from these agencies help us and to design, to analyze, design, and implement changes we want. In order to promote more widely government services, the ministry is partnering actively with banks, with private sector companies, in order not to be a bottleneck. For example, the e-government portal or the mobile application, for it not to be a bottleneck, we are actively partnering, and we are trying to move services to the products citizens are already using now. For example, the bank applications and so on, messengers. For example, the small enterprise registry and car registry has been moved to one has been moved to the bank application, and the second service moved to the car selling portal. In order to fully avoid the paper, because we know, okay, you can obtain the public service, but in the end of the day, you have to take a document, which is a result of one public service, and provide it to the second agency. In order to overcome these challenges, we are integrating databases. Okay, that's obvious. And the second thing is we introduced a project called digital documents. So in the mobile application of e-government, the citizen can see all his main documents, driving license, national identity card, and diplomas, and so on. So these are the list of documents are being expanded. So he can share with the bank, he can share with his friends, with the organization, with employers. So no need to go and demonstrate this document in person. In order to fully make a seamless process of obtaining both government and public services, the country is working on building an identity, national identity or digital identity system based on the biometrics, because we have a widely used digital e-sign, digital signature system, but it's a token based, which is not very, of course it is very secure, but it's not very convenient for the end user. So that's why we are shifting to the biometric, which can be, once you enrolled, once you activated your account, you can then authorize the data sharing, you can authorize document sharing in both public and private sectors. So, of course, the pandemic boosted many projects which due to the maybe budget, some budget constraints or bureaucracy constraints could have moved several years, but in half a year we could introduce all these services and products. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jambaking. You really give a very kind of a good, good and comprehensive introduction of how what's the key essential elements in integrating the e-government service in your country. Like you are promoting this kind of digital ID, digital signature, and also you are advancing from like integrated service to the life cycle events. That's also what the many developed countries have been doing. And also, secondly, you also highlight importance of the leadership, because in your country, it's headed by Vice Prime Minister. And also you have a good collaboration mechanism that you have a weekly meetings, yeah, all the ministry that sit together to every week to discuss. And also third one, you also highlight the importance of the partnership with the private sector, like with banks, with the private sector. And also you also mentioned about that you are promoting this kind of service to facilitate the small enterprises for the registry. This is also very important, that collaboration with the private sector and makes the service easily accessible to the citizens, and also for the small and medium enterprises. That's a very kind of important. You also mentioned about the importance of the biometric system, so that make it more easy accessible to the citizens when they use the services. Yeah, all these kind of good experience are quite good benchmarks examples for other countries. Yeah. I also see that the online services of Kazakhstan is even higher than the online service index is even higher than Japan. So we can see that really your country making great efforts to advancing the digital government. I also see that there's many kind of questions waiting for you that from our registered participants. They're really very interested in the Kazakhstan experience. Yeah, thank you. So we will revert back to you with a question from our participants. Hope you can stay with us. Thank you so much. Yeah. So now let me have the pleasure to invite Mr. Kamera Mok, who is a director from the Ministry of the Post and Telecommunication of Cambodia. As Mr. Vincenzo has introduced, Cambodia also make great improvements in the global e-government ranking. And also Cambodia is also undergoing the rapid digital transformation. So my question for you is, can you share Cambodia's strategy for digital transformation, and what are the challenges and opportunities? Mr. Mok, you have the floor.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evenings, analysts, distinguished guests, and participants. It is really an honor for me to share the presentation today. the same other country, the journey of Cambodia in digital transformations, Cambodia we meet some key issues to be addressed, such as basic digital infrastructure, no common digital payment gateway, problematic of postal address code or national address code, need a concrete plan for digital governments, digital business, startup, and the ecosystem are at a very early stage, limited participation in the region and global value chains, lack of digital leadership and fundamental skill for digital governments, low digital literacy and capacity among citizens and business, insufficient law and regulation, lack of digital trustworthiness, need a sustained coordination mechanism. So those challenges is to be addressed. And the government of Cambodia, we also take measure to address those challenges. Next slide, please. So the first thing that we focus is to strengthen the leadership, policies, and strategies. For the last 6 years, after harmonization of telecom and ICT sector under the same roof, Ministry of Posts and Telecommunication have realizing impressive achievement over the past 6 years, building universality and affordability in telecommunication service, particularly in mobile and ICT sectors. Enterprise-oriented policy and regulatory regime is one of pillars for the growth. Therefore, Cambodia ICT Master Plan 2020 and Telecom ICT Development Policy 2020 have been officially announced in August 2014 and April 2016 respectively. The Cambodia ICT Master Plan set 5 priority initiatives such as e-government framework, cybersecurity, e-education, e-commerce, and e-tourism. With a clear and proper vision of transforming Cambodia into a society with telecom, ICT, connectedness, and readiness, the Telecom ICT Development Policy 2020 indeed aim to strengthen and widen telecom ICT infrastructure connectivity, enhance human resource development, and promote ICT industry and ICT use. Moreover, to oversee the technical aspect of telecommunication sector, the telecom regulator of Cambodia has been reformed by telecom law promulgated in December 2015, which is the properly consistent with Cambodia's commitment to WTO and regulatory guidelines of International Telecommunication Union. The telecom law aims at ensuring the utilization of telecom infrastructure and delivering telecom service efficiently, securely, reliable, affordable, and high quality, ensuring the promote of private sector investment and fair and legal competition, and ensure the protection of the end users. Next, please. So this is the new journey of Cambodia that now it held a very strong political willing and leading support from the senior minister, and the journey forward for the Cambodia e-government transformation is now we are focusing to establish the package of policy framework that focus on the digital economy and digital government transformation. And here I would like to share the drafting of digital government framework that this framework we already agreed between, in particular, between the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunication and Ministry of Economy and Finance. So the framework, we define a very clear goals. So the goal we set a smart government and digital economy accelerators. And we also set the objective. So the objective, we define 4 objectives. The first one is open governance. Second one is good governance. Third one is digital economy accelerator. and the fourth one is public service efficiency. And we also set the three principles, the only one principle, the interoperability as an ecosystem, and land and expand efficiency. And also the last one is institutional arrangements that we're focusing on capacity building and leadership, institutional arrangements, funding and procurements. Next, please. For the digital government development strategy, we define three key strategies. The first one is digital key enablers that based on the build one, reduce everywhere principles. So the digital key enablers referring to establishing a key service enabler such as government data center, digital ID, electronic know your customer eKYC, public key infrastructure, digital signature, data exchange platform, revamping postal code and address codes. So we believe that those components, when we build ones, that all government agency or government ministry, they can utilize and easily to start transforming their process of public services. And the second strategy is public service digitalization, bringing frontline public service online to foster public sector productivity and competitiveness. It's important to enhance public service for both business and citizen. Addressing the issue of system standard and interoperability and how all government systems could be well integrated and fully interoperated. So this is the objective in the second strategy to be addressed. And the third one is data-driven governance. Developing open data and data-driven governance system help unlock economic value and encourage public engagement, co-creation, and social innovations. Government should move with open data initiative through innovative use of technology by releasing data sharing principle to guide government agency in sharing more data and co-creating with the publics. Next, please. Thank you for your attention. And our last slide is based on the report of UNDESA. Cambodia is good in the telecom infrastructure index and human resource development index. And the UNDESA also the report also recommend Cambodia to strengthen the online service developments. And based on the recommendation and based on the very clear vision and very clear digital transformation frameworks, now the national portal is on the soft launch, and all ministry, including the local government, they are also focusing on launching their portals. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mok. Thank you for introducing the Cambodia's digital government framework. And also the chart you have just introduced reminds me of the Smart Nation Initiative of Singapore. So I think I see some similarities, you know, also. So I think the regional cooperation partnership in this region is also really important. Yeah. And also you highlighted this kind of key enablers, you know, and also this kind of public service digitization, and also the data-driven governance, and also with put the highlights on the importance of open data and data sharing system. Yeah. So and also you, of course, you also mentioned the importance of this kind of leadership, and which also highlighted by our speaker from Kazakhstan, and also this kind of consistent policy and strategy across government ministries. Yeah. So that's also maybe the primary kind of important starting point, yeah, for the digital government development for the long term. Yeah. So okay, thank you so much. Yeah. So now we for the part one of this session, we have the three speakers from Korea, from Kazakhstan, from Cambodia. They all introduced their national government strategy. And also among all these kind of three national speakers, the speakers from our member states, they all mentioned the importance about this data, and also the political leadership, and also about they all mentioned about digital ID, digital signature, and also about the security of the system. Yeah, and also Mr. Aquara also highlighted the concerns about the widening digital divide, and also the importance of the investment and utilization of the new technology. Yeah. Okay. So now let's move to the part 2 on the digital government for disaster risk reduction and sustainable development. Actually, in the Asia Pacific region, the role of digital government for DRR has always have a special relevance in this region. And ICT and e-government has always been, has a priority for providing solutions to the disasters. Yeah. So our first speaker from the Pacific Disaster Center. So Ms. Orin Hurry, yeah, who is the Director of Global Operations of the PTC. So Orin, my question for you is that the importance of DRR is well noted for successful sustainable development. Can you tell us about the role of in DRM and what your organization does to support the countries? Yeah. Orin, you have the floor.
Aloha, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Yes, I think today what I really want to focus on in that question is, the importance of risk-informed governance and how do we achieve that. So next slide. I think the piece that is really important here is that technological innovations have to be coupled with risk-informed governance, and really to ensure that stakeholders have the necessary insight to make informed decisions and encourage this sustainable development for future causes and to advance DRR as a whole. So I think we intuitively know the importance of ensuring that disaster risk reduction is effectively integrated into governance. But the challenge has always been on how to implement and operationalize it. And so with the Pacific Disaster Center, that is something that we aim to do, is to bring the best data and information and to leverage the best advances in technology to get the data in the hands of decision makers. And I think overall, as a group, an entity working on disaster risk reduction, we've always done a good job at historic risk assessments to inform general disaster preparedness and early warning. However, as a global community, for us to build resilience, we need to be more aggressive in the way that we refine the outcomes of those assessments at all scales and be able to reflect a clear path for policymakers and who are not scientists. So I think many times we all see assessments that say you have a 0.57 risk. That is not enough information to inform governance or to inform decision-making at the correct level. And so with PDC, one of the things that we're doing is really enhancing these subnational, both hyper-local assessments, subnational assessments, regional assessments, and global assessments, understanding that, the data and information is cross-cutting. So I think it's imperative that we work to translate those scores really into insight and ensure that the recommendations are contextualized with clear courses of action if we're going to advance both at a very local level and at a regional or global level, which really takes us into the discussion of risk-informed governance and how it's enhanced by innovation. And I think when we look at that at a very real level, today we are here communicating virtually. And in the time of COVID, I think we've illustrated the need to better leverage technology and innovation in small ways, like this Zoom meeting, but also by supporting remote management of disaster risk reduction. So over the last several months, With COVID, we've been unable to share our experiences face to face. And I think that we need to ensure that those small steps are integrated and part of our policy governance. Many times we have regulations that require us to be face to face to vote on action or to take sustainable action, and we want to improve that. I also think for the reality of today, we must embrace this whole of society approach to inform policy to ensure that the growth and development is done in a way that many companies and industries have done for a very long time. We need to become comfortable with what is seen as non-traditional data sources. So for example, we are being broadcast right now live through Facebook. We have a lot of users on Facebook. That data is made available through Facebook Data for Good. And I think when we combine these non-traditional data sources with authoritative data sources, we're able to help support the decision making. And that's something that I think we really should embrace. I also want to really stress the importance of expanding transnational data sharing and policies to help ensure that with climate change and other cross-border hazards, that we are not restricting ourselves or limiting ourselves in the way that we conceptualize these problems or conceptualize the solutions. So I think we're all acutely aware that climate change is impacting all of us, but not necessarily impacting us all equally, which is why we want to leverage that data and data standards to ensure transparent collaboration and expand beyond our borders to make sure that what's happening upstream, for example, is not going to have detrimental impacts. I think this is also why PDC as a whole is supporting a active open source data with transparent development and clear metadata so that we can inform these really important decisions as we move forward. Next slide, please. I just want to highlight just 3 quick areas where this is being translated, not just from conceptualization or is being translated from conceptualization to operationalization. So the first on the left is a view at PDC's disaster alert technology, disaster aware. This is global, it's multilingual, and it's available. But I think even for those areas that have issues with bandwidth or access to cell service or extensive data networks, we are improving, and as we're improving, each individual is becoming a data provider when it comes to disaster risk reduction. And utilizing the right types of analysis to ensure insight, I think, is going to be critical, and we should do that as a collective group. An example of that is the image in the center, which is a JADE product that PDC is doing in combination with UN-OCHA and World Food Program, where we're pulling together critical data and information during times of disaster to inform decision-making as it relates to the relief and support for areas most significantly impacted. And we're doing that in a way that takes into consideration the vulnerabilities and the socioeconomic conditions, as well as the cultural conditions on the ground. And then finally, on the far right, what we're showing you is part of our National Disaster Preparedness Baseline Assessment, which is focused truly on the operationalization of data and information for decision makers. And what this graphic here is illustrating to you is the process of taking these detailed hyperlocal, subnational, and even global assessments and filtering them through a disaster management analysis specific for the policymakers so that they can establish governance. And what we're coming out with are solid recommendations or courses of action to advance. And I think, you know, I'm going to stop here to be mindful of my time, but I want to illustrate very tangible examples of how and why we need to have risk-informed governance, and how we can use innovation and technology for disaster risk reduction and resilience. So I appreciate, I could go on for much longer, but I promised I would stay to my 7 minutes. So I appreciate everybody's attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Orin. Thank you so much for, introduce this kind of risk-informed governance. Actually, you highlight the importance of both governance dimension and the technology dimension. So actually, coupled with the technology, the risk-informed governance can really help the countries to managing and mitigate the risks. Yeah. So so the risk-informed governance can be enhanced actually by the innovation. You also mentioned the importance of data sharing. Yeah, so that's also very, very important for the integrated solutions. Yeah, and also thank you so much for introducing what your PDC has been contributing to the regional and the global community for the disaster risk reduction efforts. Yeah, through the kind of transnational data sharing, and also through the open source data and the metadata. I think it's really very important for many kind of, especially for the small island development states and all those countries that are prone to the disasters. They can effectively use that data that putting together by your office and also with the other kind of you just mentioned about the UN, other UN agencies, right? For putting together all the kind of critical data, so that it can be used for the member states, including that's called the image center. Yeah. So this kind of apps are really, this kind of open source, open code applications are very useful for developing countries. So they don't have to invent the new wheel, but they all use the current available sources and also these apps for their management of a risk informed governance, and also for the managing the managing the disasters. Yeah. So actually, for all participants, actually, several weeks ago, our office and the UNDR as a co-organized online training on the risk-informed governance, and also about front technology for DRR and building resilience. Also, I mean, Orin was also other speaker during our long 6-week long training workshop. So if you're interested, you can also go to our website to find more information about its online training workshop. You can find more information about the DRR by leveraging the technology and the risk-informed governance. Thank you, Orin. Thank you so much. Yeah. So now let me have the pleasure to invite Dr. Furano, who is a professor from National College of Public Administration and Governance from University of the Philippines. Yeah. So Dr. Furano, he was based on the Project NOAA, which is a very kind of famous in the region, to use this kind of ICT-based technology to manage the disaster risks in the Philippines. We all know that Philippines is kind of one of the countries most prone to the disasters, but Philippines has already accumulated many rich for experience. Yeah. So Dr. Furano, my question for you is, what are the required institutional arrangements to help harness the digital governments for potential for DR and build resilient communities? Yeah, Mr. Furano, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Keeping Yao. Can you hear me? Am I clear?
Yes, clearly, yeah.
Okay, can I have the PowerPoint presentation? First, I would like to apologize if I'll get disconnected because our internet connection, my internet connection in my office is very unstable, perhaps an after effect of the typhoon for the past 2 weeks. So pardon for that. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all. I'll be answering the question on what are the required institutional arrangements to help harness the digital government's full potential for DRR and building resilient communities. Next slide, please. So I will be presenting a part of my paper, which is part of a research project on the digitalization of public service by the Asian Productivity Organization. The book will be published still in December 2020. But my takeaway points are two. First is to respond to the question about the institutional arrangement. I would say no one size fits all institutional arrangement, because I cannot say that the Philippine institutional arrangement is applicable to South Korea, and then the institutional arrangement of South Korea will be applicable to, for example, for Taiwan. So I would suggest that we use the planning tools that we have right now. These are the cause and effect planning tools like the SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and trends. Also the logical framework or log frame. And then the theory of change, okay? So when you have already identified the functions, that's the second point here, is that you can now organize, okay? So the second point is form follows functions, but you can only identify the functions if you do the planning, okay? You use all of these planning tools. So I would illustrate this with the use of, in the context of Project NOAA, the Nationwide Operational Assessment of Hazards, which is a project designed to come up with hazard maps that can be utilized for early warning for disasters. So in this paper, we use the policy modeling canvas, which is also similar to the cause and effects SWOT analysis, log frame, and theory of change. So we started with issues, problems. I will not be discussing all of this, okay, just to illustrate to you how we use the policy modeling canvas, okay? So the Philippines has always been visited by, well, natural disasters. Then there are lots of deaths, damages. And part of it also is that Filipinos are not generally aware about these extreme events, okay, like climate change also including. And big data analytics have not been fully utilized for climate change actions and disaster risk reduction. So after having analyzed those issues and problems, the goal of the Project NOAA is to come up with, to have in the future, to have a resilient Philippines, a disaster-free Philippines. And the strategies will have to be coming up with these updated, digitalized hazard maps, okay, creating a center that will be catering to these kinds of services, okay? So I think you will be interested with the governance aspect, because the project was created in recognition of the fact that bureaucracy, the regular government bureaucracies, would sometimes tend to drag over their mandated functions. So the Department of Science and Technology oversaw the creation of the Project NOAA, which was based at the University of the Philippines, which was composed then of academics and experts. And these were supported by 56 organizations. I made a count: national government agencies, local government agencies, academic institutions, non-governmental organizations, telecommunication companies, etc. The funding was provided by the government, and the human resources came from the scientists and experts from the University of the Philippines. And they bought the state-of-the-art equipment for the activities, as you can see there, like landslide sensor, coastal and storm surge assessment and mitigation, flood, GIS, and information education campaign, etc. So the outputs were hazard maps, NOAA website, mobile applications that you can download on your smartphones, and then publications, downloadable data, open to the public, okay, and open file reports. The outcomes is that there has been a change in the awareness of the Filipinos on extreme weather events and disaster risk reduction and management, which resulted to the reduction of casualties and loss and damages from natural disasters. All of these redound to the beneficiaries, which is of course the whole nation, the families, academics, national government, and local government planners and policymakers. The academe also benefited from this, and also non-governmental organizations. Next slide. So what is the effect? The effect is that you can see from 1999 to 2015 in the what you call this, the pink area. This is the pink area are disasters which failed because there were many. The disaster resulted to many deaths. Okay, from 1999 up to 2015. But with the introduction of Project NOAA, as you can see, okay, in the blue area, the disasters were averted, but there were some still disasters which failed from 2012 to 2013. Well, because all of these were strong natural hazards, like strong typhoons, which cannot really be averted. Okay, so this was in 1999 to 2015. So as you can see, Project NOAA has had some good effects, averting disasters, but it was transferred already because it's a project. All the resources of Project NOAA were returned or were given back. Okay, or given back to the national government, primarily to the Department of Science and Technology. So, so what happened? Could you kindly click the? So in this, during 2017 to 2012 to 2015, these disasters were averted because Project NOAA utilized the hazard-specific, area-focused, and time-bound early warning system. But then by 2017, could you kindly click the PowerPoint? Okay, so when all the resources, all the outputs of NOAA were given to the national government, as you can see, okay, by 2017, you can see that most of the disasters were failed. That means there were many deaths and casualties by that time. So what is the explanation? Could you kindly click the PowerPoint? Because the government resorted to general early warning system, okay, which was before Project NOAA was also utilized, the general early warning system. So I think the third point here is that we might be able, with digitalization, we might be able to buy or utilize the latest technology, gadgets, and devices, but we also need to reform our bureaucracy. There must be some change in the mindset, in the strategies that we're using, or for example, in this case, early warning system. I have a video, but I wouldn't be able to play them because of lack of time. So I will just end my PowerPoint presentation here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Frano. Yeah. So, okay, so you don't want to play the video, right?
No more, no more.
Okay.
No more.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So thank you for introducing this kind of institutional setting for Project NOAA. And also, I fully agree with your conclusion that no one size fits all institutional arrangements. Yeah, so from the Project NOAA, I see that it's the governance structure is very, very innovative. Not only you have this kind of the collaboration across the 56 national ministries, government agencies, but also with the local governments, with the CSOs, with academia, and also with the foreign governments. It's very impressive, yeah. And also, I'm also very, how to say, I know that this kind of Project NOAA, since its application in, in 2011, right?
Yes. From 2012 to 2015.
Yeah, 2012, 15. Yeah, especially from the application of this system, actually, there's many kind of a disaster avoided. Yeah, so really save a lot of life, you know. Yeah.
But
so
when the project was ended, it was adopted by the University of the Philippines.
Okay, so we can see that from the two charts, you can show that with this project system, this project, you can have this kind of only warning system with a very kind of specific area, the time-bound information for the citizens.
Yes.
And also it also can enhance awareness of citizens about risks.
Yeah.
So it's
because
really
it had a 6-hour early warning system, which was very, very useful at that time. 6 hours.
Yeah, 6 hours it means a lot for disaster risk reduction. Yeah. Thank you so much for introducing.
Thank you
this,
very much.
This really combination of the the so-called risk-informed governance, as Orin just introduced, about governance plus the technology. It can really help effectively managing the disaster risks. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Now let me have the pleasure to invite Ms. Anitero Toimoeno, from who is the Director of Information and Technology from MEIDECC of Tonga. So Ms. Toimoeno, we know that Tonga has put efforts to strengthen digital access, efficiency, and security in public services by supporting whole of government digital initiatives. My question for you is, can you tell us more about initiative and how it will be applicable to recovery from the COVID-19 and sustainable development? Mr. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Yeo. A warm greeting from the Kingdom of Tonga. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this symposium. And just to be clear on the question that I was given, in which that I prepare my slides on, which the importance of disaster risk reduction is well noted for the successful sustainable development. Can you tell us about the role of ICT and digital government in disaster risk management and successful stories, including lessons learned from Tonga? And I think that's the question that I was given. If I'm mistaken, I apologize. But
no, it's okay. It's okay. Go ahead, Angela. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
But in my response to this question, regards to the role of ICT and digital government in disaster risk management, ICT and digital transformation enable stakeholders with more ways to seek information prior and during disaster situations, and to look for fast and efficient support in emergency management process. Since coordination in any emergency requires the most current information, and such information must be communicated in real time, there is a need for integrated communication and information system for disaster management that provides efficient, reliable, secure exchange and processing of relevant information. ICT can play a pivotal role in monitoring, mitigating, and adaptation of climate change challenges. Both developing countries suffers the impacts of climate change, and to get rid of these challenges, there are emphasized use of ICT. Much as developed countries are enriched in using technology in observing climate change or disaster management, developing countries are still looking at deploying these technologies in climate change and disaster management. Affected attributes to insufficient budget, short-term planning, lack of awareness, um, uneducated communities, insufficient training, and many socio-economic and political factors as the main obstacle in deploying and adopting ICT in developing countries. Um, yeah, just like I'm just going to talk about a little bit more about Tonga and its location and the vulnerabilities and risk in the Pacific nations. As you can see from the slide, Tonga consists of 169 islands, and about 36 of them are inhabited. Our population is only about a little bit over 100,000. And you can see that in order for anybody to get to Tonga, they have to go through either from Australia, or New Zealand, or from Fiji. So one other thing that I need to point out is in regards to the location of the Tonga Islands. On the picture on the far right, you can see the location of Tonga. It's right at the edge of the Tonga Trench, and that becomes a very
Sorry to
Tonga.
interrupt you. Angela, can you speak a bit loudly? Your voice is a bit too low, yeah.
So Tonga is located right at the edge of the Tonga Trench, so that contributes to the threat of tsunami. Um, according to the World Risk Index 2020, the index shows that Oceania, where Tonga is it's being characterized, was the continent most at risk. So Vanuatu was the country with the highest disaster risk worldwide, and followed by Tonga and Dominica. The small island states had limited financial resources and had made a small contribution to the climate change, but were affected the most by its consequences. So as the government respond to how we're going to use ICT to mitigate the effects of climate change, one of the items that Tonga developed is a digital government framework. So the framework consists of 10 principles, namely focus on security, connectivity, interoperability, portability, innovation, accessibility, customer focus, customization, standardization, redundancy, and holistic co-government approach. Next slide, please. In response to building a holistic approach with the whole government, the government of Tonga developed a government digital platform, and this platform consists of three components. The first one is a government data center with cloud services, and also a government secure IP network. And the third one is the unified communication for the whole government. So this platform is being developed in preparation for the next phase of our e-government projects, which is the government system integration to be ready for online services. So at this point, we have completed this platform, and we also engage on developing a internet exchange point, so that we can localize our traffic and develop a more resilient communication system. Next slide, please. So other projects that Tonga has been engaged on, we have with the meteorology, we developed some weather automated weather stations. We have 21 installed in Tonga. And also we have some permanent sea level recorders in different areas. And also we use this system to post the data through the web form, where the citizens can go and get real-time information. Another thing that Tonga is engaged on is the early warning system, where we're using the FM frequency to activate sirens. And that project is being ongoing right now. It's almost done. So what it is, it's that when in the event of any disaster, like a tsunami, which is more vulnerable to, the meteorology office will activate the siren from their office and the sign will be activated through the radio transmission, so that people can be alarmed within 3 minutes. That's the goal. And I think that's the and the other system that the government has developed is a government video conferencing system where we don't need to go up to the internet. We have installed it in our data center so we can contact video conferencing with other parts of the islands using the local network. And I think in response to these questions, I running out of time. I'll conclude my presentation here and wait for other time to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Angel. Yeah, Tonga is one of the Pacific states, and also the vulnerabilities and disasters has always been so the factor should be mainstreamed, integrated, incorporated in the digital government framework and a strategy. Yeah, so it's always a kind of a big factor you have to take into consideration. And thank you for, and also as you mentioned that the real time, you mentioned several times about the importance about real time data sharing. This is also very critical for the disaster risk reduction. And also you also introduced the main initiatives by Tonga government about digital platform, about the system integration of online services, and also about the IXP, about the data exchange. So it's also very important for the effective management of the disasters. Yeah. Also, some of this kind of the key projects is also very kind of a country specific important projects for your country. For example, like government video conference system is also very important during this time of the COVID-19. It can also, you don't have to go to office to have all these conferences, all the meetings. Yeah. So all these projects, I think it should be, as I customized to the specific country needs, as in other countries. Yeah. Thank you so much, Angel. Thank you for introducing the Tonga's experience, how you're managing the disaster risks in your country with to develop the system customized to the specific country needs. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay.
So now I invite my dear colleague, Mr. Samuel Dana, who is the associate capacity expert of UNPOC. So Dana will introduce how to leverage digital government and frontier technologies for DRR and resilience. Yeah, Dana, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you hear me clearly?
Very clear.
Okay, thank you very much, Captain, for the question. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to begin my submission by emphasizing that the significant role of digital government, including frontier technologies for achieving the SDGs and disaster risk reduction cannot be downplayed or underestimated. Next slide, please. So building on other speakers' presentation, it should be noted that digital government and ICTs have become increasingly important as countries across the globe strive to accelerate the achievement of SDGs and DRR, especially in this decade of action till 2030. So first, digital government broadly refers to the use of ICTs to deliver government services to make them more efficient and effective. It's undoubtedly clear that digital government and frontier technologies have emerged as powerful tools for ensuring disaster risks and building resilience, including ensuring inclusive societies. So digital government and ICT or frontier technologies present enormous opportunities and potential for making sure that services are improved, increase citizens' participation, enhance transparency, accountability, inclusion, and ultimately contributing to the SDGs and disaster risk reduction. So it is important to reiterate the fact that leveraging digital government technologies, such as using GIS, that is Geographic Information Systems, remote sensing, big data, open government data, drones, big data analytics, AI, that is artificial intelligence, and more can enable governments to better be able to anticipate and also prepare and respond to the multiplying threats of disaster risks. We know disaster risk reduction is something of grave concern the world over, but more so robust, timely, accurate, disaggregated, and people-centered accessible information is also key for decision making, especially in times of disasters. So simple and basic ICT tools, including mobile phones, provides data for being able to predict and ensure early warning system. Real-time mobile phone data can also provide valuable insights on disaster response and help to be able to mitigate against the impacts of disaster risks. So digital government also has the potential to enhance e-resilience through the use of ICTs to promote resilience at the local level, especially at the community level, in all the phases of the disaster risks or disaster management process. That is during the preparation, during the mitigation, the prevention, the response, and also at the recovery stage to build back better. Next slide, please. So it should be noted that please, next slide. Yes, it should be noted that while digital government and ICTs have been acknowledged as very important for ensuring disaster risks and also resilience, unfortunately, however, there exists a widening digital divide across countries, as we learned from other speakers. So the very first step is to think about how do we build or bridge this digital divide. And one is to ensure that there is the need to address the systemic inequalities that exist across societies. And this exists in the form of limited resources, weak infrastructure base, and inefficient capacities, especially among the human resources in member countries. It is also important to therefore work together to help bridge these digital inequalities in these countries. Digital divide broadly refers to the gap that exists between different groups, people, different countries, and different regions across the world, especially in the area of using or access to modern ICT technologies. So bridging digital divide will help ensure the inclusion of all people to build resilience. And this requires the development of digital government capacities, since countries still lack the basic capacities to effectively leverage these technologies. So one, it is good to strengthen digital capacities, and this will invariably help bridge the digital divide we have, and to make sure that no one is left behind as we progress towards 2030. So providing all the needed resources, ensuring adequate access to ICT infrastructure, and making available, affordable, and accessible technologies, including basic mobile phone technology and high-speed internet connectivity are equally important when we want to address this. So there's therefore the need for a holistic approach when trying to address this gap that exists, and this calls for the need to build capacities for a holistic digital government transformation. Please, next slide. So I'll now like to quickly move to highlight one case of leveraging digital government technology. And this case illustrates how leveraging digital government technology or ICTs helps in solving disaster or helps in mitigating or working in disaster risk situations. So this technology or this case illustrates where digital technology or digital government is being leveraged to help find victims who are trapped under collapsed building, especially in times of disasters or when there's a structural failure. And it's difficult tasks mostly that constrain people being able to reach the victims who are trapped under this rubble. But what happens is that technology is being able to help them to be able to trap and detect survivors through the rubble and the debris. And this has a potential of being able to maximize the efficiency of searching for victims and thereby increasing the chances of saving lives. So in this particular case, we see technology being used even at the point of disasters to help save lives. So in conclusion, I would like to re-echo the fact that digital government is much more interconnected with the SDGs and has emerged as a powerful tool for achieving the 2030 agenda and disaster risk reduction. And more so in building inclusive, building resilient societies. So bridging digital divide must focus on addressing the systemic inequalities that exist. And this will be able to ensure that there is inclusive societies across board, leveraging digital government and frontier technologies to increase access to the reliable, accurate, and timely information at all levels of society is very critical, especially immediately before the disaster, during the disaster, and after the disaster, to be able to ensure that we build back better and build resilient societies. Thank you very much for your attention, everyone.
Thank you, Dana. Yeah, thank you for point out the importance and policy concerns about how to bridge the divide, and also how to make sure that all the citizens can be accessible to the information, to digital government, digital technologies, yeah, and ICTs, and also the importance of building capacities, yeah, all are very important policy consideration in managing, in better leveraging digital government and ICT for the disaster risk reduction. Yeah, thank you so much, Dana. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
So yeah, so this concludes the part 2, our session 3. Now let's move to the part 3 of this session on the public sector innovation for responsive service delivery. Yeah. So we all know that during the COVID-19, the digital government and also all these innovative solutions can significantly help the government and the society to managing this kind of pandemic, including the sharing information. And also many countries, almost all the countries, they have this kind of government portals. Some are designated government portals for information sharing. And also there's more than 4 million e-government COVID-19 apps for managing the risk. And also we also see many innovative partnerships are building. And also we also see that the data and the use of new technologies are really kind of become more important for the contact tracing and for and also for social distancing. Yeah. And also, so there's many innovative solutions. So this part, we will also discuss those kind of responsive and innovative solutions, yeah, for the managing the COVID-19. So our first speaker in this kind of a part will be Mr. Giulio Quagliato, who is the head of the Regional Innovation Center of UNDP Asia Pacific. Giulio, the question for you is, can you tell us how countries are embracing innovation, and can you share some success stories? Yeah, Mister, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And if you could pull up the slides and go straight into the second slide. So the next one, please. Thank you. So thank you very much for the invitation and for joining this conversation. So when we talk about innovation in public service delivery these days, we often think about the design around life events, or for example, Estonia famous input only one rule, meaning citizens should only input data once and government will always take care of that afterward. But I actually often think about this image, and colleagues from Korea will tell me whether this is still a real one or not, but this is something that was outside the town hall of Seoul. And this is an ear. This is meant to signal to citizens, I hear you, I listen to you, what you have to say. And citizens can scream or yell into the ear both the things that they like and they don't like about public services, and this is part of a much broader system to analyze and get feedback from citizens. If you go to the next slide, please. So as much as I like this example, I also think it doesn't tell the whole story. And I think part of the story is that if we want to bring really radical change to services, we need to radical change the organizations that deliver them. So when we see the innovation that is happening around the world, the successful cases, is not so much about improving marginally or incrementally within existing frameworks and within existing organizations, but redesigning organizations around completely different type of logics. If you go to the next slide. So to give you an example, imagine that the government is actually stating that they want to do this. They want to digitize, trying to get citizens to get a driving license by 30%. Now this is great, right? This is obviously as a citizen a great thing. But imagine if you go next, if the same actually intent was framed this way. We will redesign mobility, so we will no longer use cars, depend on fossil fuels, and provide healthier life for everyone. The first example, the service is operating within the current paradigm and say, I'll make it a bit better. In the second example, you're actually saying we create a new paradigm through the services and the infrastructure that we create. Now, the second, of course, is much more challenging because it requires, again, a radical change to the organizations and how they think and they operate. So if you go to the next one. So I don't think it is a case that you will see around the world examples of bolder and bolder language that appeals to the fact that we need to reimagine public services. Bologna is the only city in the world that I know of that has a civic imagination office inside its town hall. And the office was created because the mayor was very frustrated that many times citizens wanted to help a municipality, but the municipality said, sorry, we cannot interact with you because we have legal constraints to do so. So Bologna has created a unique tool, which is called the Citizen Government Collaboration Pact, which basically says citizens take ownership of certain type of services or that they care to deliver. The government will not officially procure them because they cannot do that, but also they will not stop them. We have 400 of these citizen government collaboration pacts going. If you click next. Now, during COVID, many food delivery people found themselves in a very vulnerable position because the platform companies were not providing them sufficient protection, which is something that happens also across our Asia Pacific. So what the Office of Civic Imagination has done is created a cooperative called Ethical Deliveries, which redesigns completely the logic of a platform economy to provide a fair protection to people who deliver food around the city. This is an example of radically rethinking service delivery rather than just marginally improving it. If you go to the next one. Governments around the world are experimenting with something called rules as code, which is basically translating rules and regulations into software so that it's machine readable. So if you go to the next one, for example, you can imagine a scenario where houses are built by 3D printers. And if rules and regulations are embedded as code in the 3D printers, the 3D printer automatically builds to the specs provided by the government. And every time the regulation is updated, this is automatically inserted in the 3D printer, which means that the regulation is updated automatically throughout. Australia has just launched its first piece of rulers code, and many other governments across the world are doing this. And again, this is an example of radically rethinking this kind of regulation, so that is not only contactless, if you want, but actually reduces the probability for litigation. So if you go to the next one, another example that has been talked a lot about, and for full disclosure, I used to work in the Prime Minister office in the UAE, is the Ministry of Possibility in the UAE. And again, this is a virtual ministry that was created to indicate and prove to the bureaucracy that it is possible to radically reimagine services and deliver them in a completely different way. Click to the next. An interesting program that is coming out of the UAE is the Government Accelerator, which has nothing to do with the traditional accelerator program we think of with startups, but is actually for 100 days almost inverting the logic of government hierarchy. So what happens is that people that care about a particular service across society, so this is private sector, citizens, you name it, gather to actually set a target on improvement of a particular service. And the ministry says, so long as they agree to the target, they actually are going to approve whatever this group comes up after 100 days, so long as it proves actually the solution works. So it's actually, in a sense, shifting the logic of how government traditionally operates to radically design services. If you go to the next. So I thought I would provide examples also from different type of contexts. So this is in Kenya, a startup called Mobilize Constructions is actually working on the issue of road safety. And what happens there is that the roads are often in poor conditions in rural areas. It is very difficult for the government to inspect them. So they go over maybe every 6 months or every 2 years if you're lucky. And what they've done is created a system whereby ambulances and other even bikes that go through streets like this have sensors embedded in them. Whenever the sensor picks up a major hole, it sends a message to the local community, which then people bid through their mobile phone to fix the hole, and they actually are able then to bid to who actually is the cheapest to rebuild the road. And in this way, they have basically completely decentralized government provision of services in this case. So if you go to the next one, please. And next. And next, thank you. Okay, so just very briefly, I'll end with 2 slides. One, just to say the period of COVID has obviously spurred this type of radical rethinking quite dramatically. It's been a period of dramatic experimentation across services and redesign of services across the world. And I just wanted to end with 5 quick insights. Next slide, please. And the next. Thank you. On things that have emerged from the innovations that we've seen both across this region and beyond. I should mention we produced a podcast called COVID Innovation Dividend, when we recorded stories of governments from Bangladesh to Pakistan, all the way to Sierra Leone on how they radically reimagined services during COVID. So let me just go very quickly through this. Fast is not a direction. Meaning that many governments have jumped to adopt solutions without, of course, under duress. But this might or might not have long-term implications that we still need to have discovered. For example, digitizing many products without really having a chance to fully evaluate who's included, who's excluded. Safety nets, issues with identifications, issues of providing services that then ended up creating conditions that exclude more people. Just being user-centered is not enough. Just being able to create conditions for individuals to work well together is not enough. In situation of emergency, we need to be community-centered. We need to create issues for decentralized action and reaction, as was mentioned also before. Maybe the only other thing I wanted to say, the last point, is that citizens often get there faster. So this is not only a matter of innovating with citizens or for citizens, but often innovating after citizens. Famous case, West Java went into lockdown because a group of volunteers actually created a model for the governor of West Java, showing that actually that they had to lock down, and the governor, to his credit, actually accepted that. So in this case, the citizens got there first. The question is, have governments got instruments and interfaces to pick the innovation from the outside and bring them quickly within? I'll end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gilia, for your inspiring speech. Actually, from what you have presented to us, and I also, the one key term keeps pop up is about radical. The radical thinking, and also or redesigning of the new paradigm is not an incremental change, but we have to totally have some radical change to the whole system. So this kind of also about the new regulations. So we need to make radical changes. And also, I'm very impressed by several of your slides about this. This virus is a control variable. It really spoil many kind of innovations. We cannot follow the previous kind of paradigm approaches, but we need to take the totally new approaches to managing this kind of unprecedented challenges to us. Yeah. So, and also you mentioned that fast is not a direction, but also we need to have some thinking, new thinking. How about we have so-called long-term impacts? And also we should be very careful when we think about the digitalization of this kind of core functions of the public sector or the digital of the services or public services. We need to have a new thinking, new approaches. And also you also mentioned the importance that about this, how to say, the citizens in the process of the innovation. The Brunei case is also very kind of very important. The citizen can, how to say, citizen in how to say, the civic imagination office is really very innovative. Yeah, thank you so much, Gilia, for giving us so much insightful thinking about this kind of new radical thinking and a new radical designing of the system. Thank you. So next, let me invite Mr. Surasak Riangakro, who is the Deputy Permanent Secretary, Office of Permanent Secretary, Office of Prime Minister on behalf of Nantong Dam Sub-District Administrative Organization. So Mr. Riangakro will introduce one of the case in Thailand, which is about the self-reliant solar energy community. Thailand win this kind of award under the category 3 about developing effective and accountable public institutions. The key feature of this case is that the local communities, they're participating in the discussion and informed decision making. So Mr. Riangakro, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clipping Yao. Can you hear me? Do you hear
yes,
me?
Very clear, very clear. Thank
Okay.
you. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very glad to be here with all of you today. First of all, I would like to thank for the UN for the 2019 UN PSA winner for the self-reliant solar energy community project. And then really good for me to give a chance to talk about this project. First of all, I would like to talk about the problem. The problem of this, we starting from the one village or one community is called Ban Wang Won. Ban Wang Won located in the south west of Bangkok, around 300 kilometers from Bangkok. But the problem is this community located, unfortunately, to the restricted area. We can call the special zone area that not allowed for electricity and water supply. That's been not accessible for the electricity and water supply. Even though the people who live there, I can tell you that it's quite uncomfortable for sure, around 40, 60 years. And then the people, can you imagine that no electricity at night? What can we they do? People quite suffering, and then they have to use the candle instead of the light. And the children have to use candle reading the book. It's not good for them at all. That means, but fortunately, that village, Wangwon village, located under the responsibility of the Nong Ta Tam administrative, sub-administrative office, that they have to take care of this. The Nong Ta Tam sub-district administrative office have initiated the project 4 years ago. Luckily, the head of this office have a very strong and then really good team available at this office. They make a plan and then work together with the representative of the Ban Wang Won village. First of all, they asking for the cooperating and then convincing the people at the village, making and set up the committee between two sides, people and then the Dong Tat Tam sub-district administrative office, working together and then make a plan how to solve this problem. Long time problem, not easy and all solving in the overnight. That's for sure. But first of all, they make up the, as I told you earlier, that set up the committee, and then later on they have a meeting from time to time, sharing the opinion, exchange some kind of opinion, seeking for the good cooperation between two sides. And the most important thing, they initiate the fund we can call the renewable energy fund, starting from the very little money, small money. I think even not more than $100 at that time. And then there's seeking the cooperation both from the private sector, from the public sector, and then from the relevant parties, including the government. This is a problem, and then the way how that they plan at the first time. The second step, I would like to talk about the implementation and planning. After planning, implementation, the committee, after setting up, they're focusing on the efficiency and low cost energy using to that village. The self-reliance solar energy community project is a priority one. That means people can use solar energy, electricity for all activities. But the problem is how they could find out all assistance and all equipment and and then the other things from the people. They're starting to make a public relation through relevant parties, and then they focus on the government first. The Ministry of Energy give hand first by sending the people from the provincial office to assist them. Bring the technician to the village and train group by group for the community technicians. This is the first step. The second step, the private sector leading by the companies and then the big group of companies in Thailand sending the all equipment, the battery as well as the all equipment, the useful equipment, the solar cell equipment, everything to this village is the second one. The third one, about the knowledge, all knowledge we have received, they have received it from the Royal King Rama IX Royal Project, send the instructor as well as the expert.
So I'm sorry to bother you. Can you quickly wrap up within 1 minute?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
That means everything well done afterward. Okay, and then I would like to talk about the keys to success. The key to success of this project, we can tell the first one. Tell you the first one, the PPP, the people, the private sector and public sector cooperation. The second one is the the fund, as I mentioned, the community fund is very important. And then the responsibility of the office, I mean that Nong Patang sub-district administrative office, this is very important. The teamwork over there with the good cooperation from the village is also a very important thing. That means make everything done well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for further introduce this kind of innovative case. From the case that we know that this for solving the issue in the very kind of remote region, so how the government working together with the local communities, yeah. And also I also see that the ministry also work with the local villages, so that's very important. This is not just the bottom up, but also it's kind of a national, also to local coordination. That's also very important, yeah. And also you also mentioned that the several kind of a key to success, people, public and private, not the PPP, but the 3 Ps, yeah. The people play a very important role. And also I also see that this kind of innovative case, one of the key component is about the evolving capital, how to promoting the evolving capital, you secure the funding to ensure the sustainability, because many innovation projects, they just short-lived, but how to ensure this kind of this innovation projects can be sustainable. The evolving capital, the funding is very important. And also you also highlight the importance of local governance, how the local communities work together with the local governments, yeah. So that's also all very important for this kind of innovative case, yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So now let me have the pleasure to invite Ms. Arifa Sharifuddin, who is the Senior Manager of the Digital Inclusion Division, the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, Malaysia. So we all know that the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation has a number of notable programs, initiatives for innovative practices. Arifa, can you share some of these innovative practices and your organizational plan for promoting innovation in the public sector? Arifa, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Kaping, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Let's move to the next slide. So let me just briefly talk about how Malaysia has responded to the pandemic. Malaysia has 6R strategy to overcome the impact of COVID-19. The 6Rs are resolve, resilience, restart, recovery, revitalize, and reform. The first 4 are on track now, and these aspirations raise our expectations for better economic growth, fairer income distribution, and better welfare for all Malaysians. So we are currently still in recovery phase. The total value of the stimulus package now stands at 295 billion ringgit. And the recovery stimulus focuses on 3 areas, which are empowering the people, stimulating the economy, and propelling businesses. So today I will share 2 examples of programs run by MDEC in achieving the 3 goals. Before I talk about the 2 programs, I just want to highlight a little bit on revitalize and reform. So the last 2 R's, revitalize and reform, to truly achieve these 2 goals, we have to transform our present economic model significantly, and we cannot do more of the same, and we cannot carry on with business as usual. Some of the old norms must radically be reformed and new thinking adopted if we want to be successful in achieving our goals. So the revitalize are reflected in our 2021 budget, and which was recently tabled on the 6th of November. It is still now being debated in the parliament, and that total budget for next year is around 322 billion ringgit. For the reform section, it will be in our 12th Malaysia plan, which is our 5-year strategic national plan, and it will be tabled in January 2021. Next. So in my first example, the program that we have in Malaysia, it is called Global Online Workforce. In short, it's called GLOW. This is how we use digital economy to address the rising unemployment rate. So if some of you may be familiar with, globally, there is a change of landscape from conventional employment to independent freelancing and remote working. And this trend has begun since 2015 with the emergence of many digital freelancing platforms and only being accelerated by COVID-19 pandemic. Before COVID-19, some statistics that we have here would be about 40% of US workforce are freelancers, 75% of EU freelancers are full-time professionals, and the talent growth for freelancers are 3 times more than conventional labor workforce. So locally in Malaysia, even before COVID-19, we were already facing close to 20% of graduates being unemployed, and with youth unemployment rate hovering around 10 to 11%. And Malaysia's overall unemployment rate has been below 4% for many years, but with COVID-19, it jumped all the way up to 5.3% in May, which is around 770,000 people impacted. However, as of July, the unemployment rate went down to 4.7. So it is basically showing some signs of recovery. So we want to take the opportunity of the changing employment landscape here in Malaysia. And we are aware that there could be lower demand for freelance workers in the short term, but we are definitely optimistic on the steady growth expected in the long term for freelance workers, supported by behavioral shift of companies and workers. So the companies are now forced to migrate to remote working like most of us now, and most of them are now open to try on-demand freelance talents. So in May, we presented our proposal to the government, and the Global Online Workforce Penjana program became one of the key programs to assist Malaysians who have been displaced, retrenched, reduced salaries by more than 50%, as well as unemployed graduates, to become full-time professional freelancers. The government has allocated 25 million ringgit to benefit 10,000 people who are the targeted communities, in which we aim for them to earn around $500 to $1,500 US dollars a month if they are successful in participating in this program. So in general, the participants of this program will undergo a 3-day intensive training where they are taught how to be a good freelancer. So things like how to create a profile page, how to publish their rates, how to bid for projects, how to conduct themselves during online interviews, and things like that. And after that, they will be assigned to their mentors for 3 months who will guide them in securing jobs. And during these 3 months, they will also receive some allowance from the government, and supplemented by online freelancer community peer-to-peer support. So the program is now in the 2nd month, and it has already close to 4,000 beneficiaries being trained, and the recruitment drive will end in December 2020, and the program will overall will end in January next year. Just to add on, aside from this, we are also looking into social protection and safety net for gig workers. So that will also cover other types of gig workers, such as the riders, the delivery riders, etc. And the government actually provided incentives for digital platforms, for local digital platforms, to start providing insurance and protection plans for their gig workers. Next slide. Okay, so our second program is basically on how we do public-private partnership approach, whereby the government works closely together with e-commerce platform partners to stimulate the economy and propelling businesses digitally. So in this example, there are 2 programs at MDAC. So one is on micro and SMEs e-commerce campaign, and the other one is Shop Malaysia Online. So briefly, micro SME e-commerce campaign, it is an initiative by the government to encourage adoption of e-commerce by local businesses. So the main focus is to help micro SMEs widen their market reach via e-commerce and encourage more local businesses to adopt e-commerce capabilities as a new sales channels. So eligible MSMEs will be onboarded onto e-commerce platforms, and it is done through co-funding. So government funds have, and the e-commerce platforms also funds the cost for these onboarding sessions. And e-commerce platforms will also support the micro SMEs to training, seller subsidy, as well as sales support. The next program is actually Shop Malaysia Online. So Shop Malaysia Online, it features sale campaigns to encourage online consumption. So this is initiated by the government with the support from the 22 e-commerce partners participating in this program. So we want to stimulate local domestic spending. If you see on the slides, as at October, it has generated about 1.2 billion in sales for Malaysian businesses. 7.8 million consumers shop through the campaign, the Shop Malaysia Online. Some 210,000 Malaysian merchants have benefited from this initiative, as well as more micro SMEs registered and are using the various e-commerce platforms to actually pivot their business from offline to online. So for your information as well, in budget 2021, the Shop Malaysia Online has also received additional budget from the government. So we will expect this program to continue next year in 2021. So I guess that's about it. That's all my presentation for today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Arifa. Thank you for introducing this kind of two innovative cases. I think it's both cases are very kind of useful reference for other countries, how to revitalize the economy and also how to address the rising unemployment rate. Yeah. So for the first case, the government really work together with the society and also give the training to those people who register for this kind of program, and really give the hopes for those unemployed, empower them to find new jobs, so that through this kind of training and a mentoring program, they can get their jobs. Yeah. The second case is also very important, that it's kind of a partnership with the private sector, with the e-commerce platform. I think it's for preparing the economy and also especially supporting the micro and small and medium prices. Really, a government should work together with the private sector to drive to drive and support their survivor of this enterprises. Yeah. So thank you so much. This kind of very kind of pertinent cases in the time of the COVID-19. So I think country will maybe later they can come back to you for more information. How, for example, they would like to maybe know more about the challenges, the problems, and also how we come out with the solutions. Yeah, about this two innovative projects. I know that MTech also have other kind of innovative projects that you can later we can share with other countries. Yeah, thank you so much, Arifa.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. So now let's move to the Q&A session. I think that we don't have much time. So I will first pick up the question from Q&A from the chat box. The first question I would like to give to Mr. Gilia from UNDP Innovation Center. So Gilia, you are here, right? You're with us?
I am, yes.
Okay, the question is from Kavindia from Sri Lanka. So her question is, when much of the mechanisms are conventional approaches oriented, what measures should be taken to facilitate governments and institutions to move towards digitalizing reforms? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think this is obviously a complicated question, but obviously the COVID has been a good example where traditional measurements, traditional way you would have had a beautiful strategy, you'd have trained people, you'd have had milestones, all the traditional planning has been literally thrown out of floor. So we documented examples where countries had to create digital safety net programs almost overnight. And the traditional way of which governments think about this has been completely overhauled. So the question is, can you actually can you take any of these approaches forward in a different way? What that means is, rather than necessarily spend an enormous amount of time on assessments and plans that oftentimes don't get implemented for a number of different reasons, can you actually move to a much more agile method of delivery, as an example? So working towards prototype, understand pros and cons as fast as possible and move in an agile way from that, rather than waiting to have a perfect plan and move forward. Now, obviously, this goes back to the caveat that I mentioned before, that fast is not a direction. How do you do this while at the same time preserving fundamental protection, for example, of privacy, human rights, etc., but also exploring ways to radically rethink services. So rather than just doing incremental services, do things completely different. To give you an example, the Indian government had to invent on the spot new categories to actually include citizens that were excluded before in their safety nets, because they started from a very different principle under duress. They would rather go for inclusion first rather than prove me that you are a real person first. And then only then did I give you the money. Now, can you actually do that? What can you tell from that improvisation that actually builds a principle of inclusion first rather than exclusion first, right? And prove me first that you are the right person to get the benefit. What can we learn for things like that moving forward? Maybe the only final thing I would say is, again, one of the things that have come out really strongly is that in pandemic is that digital skills are much more distributed across private sector and citizens than they are necessarily within government. So figuring out clever ways for governments, so rather than thinking we need to do all by ourselves, but actually through some of the instruments that were discussed, like APIs for open data, different ways to, someone calls this the reverse procurement, right? So if citizens do it first, just bring it inside government. And we have some examples across the region of services and tools, infrastructure that was developed by hackers, citizens, that when they were actually appropriated by government. Can we actually turn this into a new normal? Can we actually say, rather than us having to come up to speed with all the new technologies, can we harness the collective intelligence of private sector and citizens to really rethink our digital services? I end here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Galia, for your very kind of good answer to this question. I think that covers several dimensions. That actually is also some reiteration of those points in your presentation, actually. Thank you so much, Galia. My second question, although is for Mr. Sung. Mr. Sung from Moise, you are still with us? Mr. Sung?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, very good, very good. Although I know that you already answered this question from Nash Acudero, but I think that this question is very important. So I would like you to answer this question again, so bring attention, universal attention of all the participants. So again, the question is, what was the effect of e-government in providing inclusive social services to all? Yeah, so actually this he asking a question about how to provide social services to those people who are below the average income, and how did the government implement this change to all institutions? Yeah.
So the question, we provide various programs and subsidies for low-income citizens, and we try to ensure their accessibility by providing both online and offline service channel. But online, we try to make services as possible we can, easy to use and accessible for all citizens. And for the offline, local governments have citizen service centers in Korea, and they help people to access their legitimate services by providing help in offline by government officials. And to ensure participation of all government organizations in this manner, to both national and local, we're using various approaches such as laws and regulations and organization performance assessment and budget allocation incentives, etc. So in Korea, it is also very important for effective service delivery, including all the citizens as long as we can. So we are trying to resolve the problem of digital divide by providing help to the people, help the people they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Song. I think this is really very important for many kind of developing countries, how to mobilize all governments to provide the services, inclusive services to all. Yeah, thank you. So my next question is for Dr. Franaro from University of the Philippines. Yeah. So this question is about the mindset and also about the capacity development. So Dr. Franaro, this question is from our colleague, Mr. Aslam Alam. His question is about the mindset. So if I interpret his question correctly, so his question is about how the government agency can have the new mindset to adopt the new practice and how to overcome the capacity limitations at the individual, organizational, and institutional levels. Yeah, Dr. Franaro?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Luckily, I was able to read this paper yesterday. It's about the use of behavioral science, for transformational change when it comes to climate change management. And it says here that in the paper, well, this is not it. So kindly close the PowerPoint. Okay, so the paper talks about some of government officials and even employees are, not so much receptive about climate change and undertakings, programs and projects because they have this kind of mindset. They have been used to this kind of lifestyle. Okay, so sometimes they will commit for to a international agreement of climate change because it feels good to be with like-minded people. But when it comes to the implementation, that's the problem. Okay, because some people, or in particular government officials and employees, they have this kind of mindset that I'm already used to this kind of living. So there is some sort of bias, okay? So the paper talks about maybe we can use behavioral science like sociology, psychology, to understand better the mindset of people, so that when it comes to matters like changing, our mindset, we might be able to tell them, you have to act now, otherwise this problem will go on. So when we talk about climate change management, it's not just the science, it's not just the hardware, the technology, it's also the software, the mindset of the people. So I think behavioral science must also be used in the area of climate change management. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you, Dr. Franaro. Yeah. So I have a last question from our registered participants. I would like to delegate this question to Mr. Vincenzo Acquaro. Vincenzo, you're still with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, thank you so much, Vin. Yeah. So the question is from John Lewis, director from the Trinidad and Tobago. His question, because he's from the CIS country, so his question is about how can citizens really benefit from digital transformation in CIS countries?
Thank you, Keping, for these questions. As you know, we believe that COVID-19 crisis is likely to significantly accelerate this shift to digital and fundamentally shake up the digital government landscape. And as highlighted in the government survey, the COVID-19 pandemic forced government and society to turn toward digital technology to respond to the crisis in the short run, and then recover from and resolve socioeconomic repercussion in the medium run, but also reinventing existing policy and tools in the long run. So COVID crisis is setting the agenda and the priorities of where to focus on digital transformation effort, such as facilitating the needs of people. And digital government have been played a vital role in promoting the health and safety of people and in keeping economies and society working with the ongoing COVID crisis. So, coming on to your question, digital government presents vast opportunity for SIDS, and several countries have digital transformation programs underway. However, although new online tools have become available in the context of the pandemic, and today we saw a lot of very good cases on that, governments need to minimize offline steps and adopt a digital by design approach and go beyond the digitalization of the existing processes, rethinking the whole organizational model to focus more on people and their needs, treating data as a strategic asset for service delivery and for decision making, and underpinning their organizations with secure, scalable, and resilient infrastructure and digital solutions. SIDS countries in particular cannot mitigate the crisis and recover alone. National, regional, and local project-driven collaboration with private sector, academia, civil society, other stakeholders are necessary. It was a colleague mentioned the 4P, so P, so also people. That's really very important. So SIDS countries have to continue working with international and regional organizations to tackle common challenges to implementing digital technology in support of the economic recovery of the region. I hope I answer quickly your questions.
Thank you so much, Vinh. Yeah. So that concludes our Q&A session due to time constraint. So we couldn't have much more time for the Q&A. So for those participants who have more questions, so you can, further join our online discussion board, and also you can also feel free to communicate with our speakers for get your answer of your questions. Yeah. So now let me quickly summarize the session 3. So this session 3, we have 3 parts, as I mentioned. So first one is about the digital governance strategy. Yeah. So from our discussion, we realized that the digital government master plan or digital government framework should be periodically reviewed in response to the citizen needs and also new development challenges. Secondly, we should put emphasis on to bridge the widening digital divide, especially with the new technologies. Many developing countries and also many kind of vulnerable groups can be further left behind. The third one is that the partnership with the private sector and also with the people is very important. The fourth is that the data security and also the protection of personal data and information become so important, especially in times of public health emergencies. The next is that we need to, change the new mindset and also build new capacities for adopting this new technologies. Yeah. So next is that we should be clear about what's kind of a key enablers for the digital government development. For example, the digital ID or the digital signature, digital signs. Yeah, these are all the key enablers. The government should identify what are those kind of key enablers and how to create an enabling ecosystem. Lastly, maybe also the most important is that the political leadership and commitments for enhancing the collaboration across government ministries are very important. So for part 2 is about the leveraging digital government for DR and resilience. So from our discussion, the first one is, again, it's about risk-informed governance, how to ensure the institutional arrangements and governance structure in place. And also there's no one-size-fits-all institutional arrangements for this kind of risk-informed governance. Secondly, we should try all efforts to bridge the digital divide to ensure that all people can have equal access to the digital technologies and also for the information. Third one is that small island development states which have unique vulnerabilities. So in the digital government strategy or framework, they always should mainstreaming this climate change and risks in their digital government strategy. For the part 3 on innovation, we also have a UNDP speaker. We have also a country national speaker. So the first key message is that for the innovation, we should have a new thinking. We should have a new paradigm. So not just incremental or patching up method approach, but we should have a new thinking. Secondly, we should enhance the partnership. And although digital skills not necessarily with the government sector, but also with the maybe in most cases with the citizens and the private sector. So we should enhance the partnership with the people, with the private sector. It's not just the PPP, but also together plus the people. The third one is that the local community and the local authorities play a very important role in the innovation. The last one is that to ensure the sustainability of innovation projects, how to ensure the financing, funding requirements is also very important. Yeah. With this, I conclude the session 3. Now I pass the floor to Mr. Bokyun Shim, the head of UN Project Office and Governance. Mr. Shim, you have the floor.
Thank you, Keping. Distinguished speakers and participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Bokyun Shim, head of UNPOC DPIDG UN DESA. It is my great honor to present to you the key messages and way forward for this year's symposium on effective, inclusive, and accountable public institutions and digital government transformation for resilient recovery and the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Over the past 2 days, this symposium has provided a unique opportunity to discuss and review very pertinent issues on effective, inclusive, and accountable public institutions and digital government transformation in accelerating the implementation of the SDGs. To begin with, I would like to express my sincerest appreciation to our distinguished speakers and participants for your active participation and insightful contributions, which have been vital to the success of this symposium. It is important to state that UNPOC DPIDG UN DESA has strived to promote strengthening of public institutions with the requisite capacities needed for achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in member states in Asia Pacific and East Africa. The annual symposium, which began in 2017, is part of this effort and has grown to be a flagship activity to provide a platform for participants to exchange good practices and to enhance cooperation among all stakeholders. The 2030 Agenda explicitly recognizes the critical role of public institutions and governance. Effective, inclusive, accountable public institutions are key enablers for achieving the 2030 Agenda. While implementing the SDGs has been no easy feat, accelerating the implementation appears even more daunting in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated the need for capable, effective, and accountable public institutions. And governance at the center of responding to the crisis. Public governance played a critical role in the immediate responses across countries and will continue to be crucial in recovery to build back better. The COVID-19 has particularly highlighted the crucial role of digital technologies in service delivery. and business continuity as a powerful transformation tool. Next page, please. Having reflected on the enriching presentations and discussions from this symposium and prior UNPOG DPIDG UN DESA capacity development programs, I would like to highlight the following key messages. It was emphasized that first, building effective, inclusive, and accountable institutions in the context of rising public expectations are challenging. But also presents great opportunities. It is essential for recovery and achieving the SDG implementation. Second, digital government innovations and transformations provide great impetus for building resilience and accelerating the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Governments are presented with new ways to deliver necessary public services to their people. Third, digital transformation is also fundamentally reshaping the global economy while contributing to building long-term resilience across countries. It was also echoed that first, the COVID-19 crisis has become the big driver for transformation in processes, mindsets, and digital innovations. Government officials are rethinking how they could add value in delivering necessary services amidst the crisis and improving existing delivery modalities to meet the evolving needs of the people. Second, the rise of digital government and ICTs offers the opportunity to unlock new pathways to rapid economic growth, promote economic mobility, encourage innovation and job creation, and improve people's lives. However, the digital divide has become a major concern to be addressed. Bridging the digital divide is vital to address the systemic inequalities across societies due to limited resources, weak infrastructure, and insufficient capacity for meaningful, inclusive, and equitable transformation. Next. It was further reiterated that first, as the world grows increasingly interconnected, governments must demonstrate strong commitments to global partnerships and cooperation to help promote the achievement of the SDGs. Second, building multi-stakeholder partnerships are critical for addressing the COVID-19. It is important to engage all stakeholders, including the private sector, civil society, youth, women, persons with disabilities, and academia, in forging an effective response mechanism through whole of society efforts. Third, peer-to-peer learning has become an inspirational and practical approach to effectively promote and strengthen capacities by tapping into and maximizing the experience and good practice of others. Next, going forward, the impact of the pandemic is transboundary and requires concerted action from us all. The call for global cooperation and solidarity is more urgent than ever. Strengthening knowledge sharing and promoting cooperation is critical in facing COVID-19 health pandemic. In building back better, we need to protect crucial gains made in implementing the SDGs thus far, and understand resilience, recovery, and sustainable development are mutually inclusive. The importance of engaging multi-stakeholders, including governments, private sector, academia, NGO, and civil society organizations is underscored as strategic and essential. It is critical to strengthen the capacities of public institutions so that they are adequately equipped to formulate and implement policies in the whole of government and the whole of society approaches. It is necessary to re-engineer government business processes, streamline and engage stakeholders in public service design to restore people's trust in government. Effective public governance and administration and the efficient delivery of innovative public services play a critical role in sustainable development. Governments must therefore innovate to ensure they stay relevant, resilient, and vibrant throughout the rapid changes. Digital transformation and innovation stand at the center of effective and innovative responses and recovery strategies to address the COVID-19 pandemic. In closing, I would like to reiterate that UNPOC, DPIDG, UN DESA, together with our partners, are committed in promoting and supporting member states' capacity development through demand-driven and solutions-driven partnership programs. We will continue to ensure that our capacity development programs support and inspire transformation. UNPOC, UN DESA will continue to promote knowledge transfer through peer-to-peer learning and support innovation in public governance by collecting and disseminating good practices. I hope this symposium was insightful and the key takeaway on how effective, inclusive, and accountable public institutions and digital government transformation to be relevant in ensuring resilient recovery and implementation of the SDGs in Asia and the Pacific. This concludes the regular program of the symposium. Tomorrow's special session on the UN DESA curriculum on governance for the SDGs is a closed meeting of Asia and the Pacific Task Force and is by invitation only. Thank you very much for your attention and active engagement in the past 2 days. Thank you. And stay connected. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good
Aloha.
day.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you
for today.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Congratulations.
much.
Thank you, Vincenzo.
Thank you, Mr. Song. Thank you, Arin.
Thank you, Mr. Song.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you, Vice Minister from
Vice.
Kazakhstan. We are
Thank you,
very
Vice Minister.
lucky to have you with us today.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.